Yes, from Ghana to help us with a prayer in his local language. Yes, Zoe, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you. Please, can we have a word of prayer? Already, that was it. And a day, why am I in the paper? So, the Abedu, Emira Yishomo, I say, ɛbɛfa adwene a ɛde mpuntu bɛbrɛ ɛbɛbi man yɛsrɛ wo sɛ ma wotumi onyansa onimuonyam ɛdi ɛkan ahyɛ yɛn den na ɔko a yɛn agyanom ɛstarte ɛko yɛn no yɛn nso yɛtumi ɛko na ɔdu awieyɛ yɛde ahotɔ a ɛyɛ abibiman ahotɔ aba obiara ne amanaman nyinaa so yɛbɔ mpae ɛde wɔn a ɛwɔ America yɛbɔ mpae ɛde wɔn a ɛwɔ Asia ɛhyɛ wɔn nsa yɛbɔ mpae ɛde obi biara a wofi Africa ɛhyɛ wɔn nsa sɛ Awurade ka yɛn ho na dom bua yɛn ɛwɔ Yesu Kristo din mu amen.
Yes, amen. Thank you for that wonderful prayer. You can go ahead and continue with your report. You have 2 minutes.
Right, thank you. Good ladies and gentlemen, fellow Black brothers and sisters, I Love Black People app is using technology to build a global network which helps protect Black people from harm, humiliation, of racism, and Afrophobia, especially when you travel around the world or in a new environment. This tech startup is powered by Bill Murray and the Green Book API. Many individuals have been engaged from the length and breadth of Africa and the diaspora, the Caribbean, the United States, the United Kingdom, Asia, and many parts of the world. We are accessible on over 58 languages currently and almost all states in Africa and the diaspora. www.iloveblackpeople.com. This is the Pan-African movement for the love of Black and the Black at heart, which is crowdsourcing Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to populate our digital space. The Green Book, the Survivor Guide, which is called on the digital space, the I Love Black People app, is available for download on all devices. That's Google Play Store and Apple iOS. A lot of activities is ongoing on the app. We encourage you to download the app now and recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly spaces in your area or place you have visited to help protect the Black from the harm, humiliation of racism and Afrophobia. In addition to the website and app, we have the long-standing Global Green Book, a Black Survivor Guide that can be gotten on Amazon. We also lock it down on Black contents on all our social media handles. Follow us and tune in every Thursdays and on our social medias, where our season co-founder is hosting a program on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays on HUR Voices Sirius XM channel 141. Brethren, this is not a one-man's work. Let's all join hands, spread the love. With your help, we are building a global network to help protect Black people from the harm and humiliation of Black people and Afrophobia. Let's save lives. Join the movement now. I Love Black People. Recommend the app for your families, loved ones, and friends. Share the link to the download in the chat room. Get the app downloaded and support the movement. Join your brothers and sisters from Africa on the I Love Black People movement. Opt for a membership. You can become a member, a founding member, a moderator, or a brand ambassador. As one African American Muslim leader and human rights activist rightly said, in recognizing the humanity of our fellow beings, we pay ourselves the highest tribute. Tagward Marshall. In recognizing the humanity of our fellow beings, we pay ourselves the highest tribute. Let's stand for Africa, the love of Black. Unity is strength. Let us unite until victory is won entirely on the African continent and beyond. Live it, love it. You are Black, we are Black. I love Black people. I am because we are. Ambassador Zoe Owusu reporting from Ghana. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Zoe Owusu from Ghana. Thank you for that wonderful report. I am because you are. Yes, up next, we're going to have our brother Abubakar Makalo. Yes, Abubakar, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself.
Good afternoon to you all.
Yes, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm Abubakar Makalo, and it is a great pleasure for me to join here with you. And I've been hearing different voice toward the development of the the Africa and the eradication of xenophobia and so on. I'm gonna discuss the history of the Pan-African history called I'm here today, or history around the history of the past. As we all know, oral history provide a fuller, more accurate picture of past by argumenting the information provided by public records, statistically data, photography maps, letter, arrays, and other historical matter. The eyewitness to event, contribute, they contribute to various view, point, that perspective that fill the gaps in document history, sometimes correcting even the contradicting the written records. All right. So in the interview, I'm able to ask the questions left out of the records and interview people whose stories have been untold and forget. So an oral history also help us to understand how individual communities experience the past history of Africa. Just think of the breadth and the length of the history today. Students have learned the history courses in high schools, universities, solely touch only the major events of a past, covering the fundamentals: who, what, when, where, what. Oral history brings depths and understandings the past by carrying into the experience at individual levels. Truthfully, personal answer to the questions like, what did you do in the war? So we talk about, we said the oral history also preserves the future generations' son portrait of who we are pre-Christians, what we remember about the past. So this is oral history, and we look at the storytellings and how what this impact today for our young people, our Africans, the culture of African, why we're going to preserve this, why it is important for us to preserve our culture. The storytelling stimulate our brains. As we connect with the message, we not only absorb the information, but feel the emotion too, as the storytelling. As my grandma, sometimes, we sit and he always narrate the story of Thomas Sankare, and we named them Marcus Garvey and others, African leaders. And I was very amazed about this story. And may his gentle soul rest in peace. We look at this storytelling. It helps us to preserve our culture, and it helps us to stimulate our young ones who are growing. That's why I have someone here, one of my nephew here. I always tell him the story of the African, why we need to preserve this story and why we need to preserve this language. Understand? The proverb, we look at the proverb here. The proverb are the gems of the wisdom, a mixture of the wisdom and philosophy. It does not argue over and point explaining things. It is just tell us great truth in most signs. In fact,
Yes,
they
sorry,
what
you
what
have
other the important knowledge of the mankind's great truth. To profile
10
the things
seconds
of the past.
left.
So we together we can make the Africa tree of life. So let's dedicate ourselves toward the development of Africa. I am because we are. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Abubakar Makalu. I am because we are. And we are also live on Facebook. If you have any question and on Facebook, you can just write it in the comment section. Then we'll be able to answer that. Yes, up next, we're going to have our brother from South Sudan. Yes, Joseph. Mulesuku, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, okay, welcome.
Yeah, the truth is that, yeah, thank you. The truth is that Black people have not always loved one another. Nevertheless, they have worked throughout history to create a lot of civilizations and to overcome common challenges that have faced the Great Pyramids of Egypt, for example, and those in Sudan, the wars of Zimbabwe, and Ethiopian civilization that successfully resisted Imperial Europe are a testament to this African spirit of togetherness, which we now call Ubuntu. Another show, of course, of this Black unity is the victory of enslaved Black people in Haiti over France in 1884, which perhaps was the greatest feat in recent history that demonstrated what Black people can do if they, despite ethnic differences, choose to unite and work for a common goal. What that means for us is that Black people, if they choose, can cooperate to create better societies for everyone. Indeed, we have seen the fruits of the unity of our liberation fathers in form of relative peace and political freedoms that are enjoyed in many parts of our continent today. But the situation does not really look positive elsewhere. As we know, there are wars in many corners of our beloved homeland, and I mean Africa. Sadly, it's no longer some faraway invader who is the face of this aggression, but Black people, one group against another, just pure Afrophobia. And we saw this ugly trend in Ethiopia recently and in my country, South Sudan, in 2013. And Sudan is the recent victim of Afrophobia due to the current fighting there. We know that around 3 million of our African people have already been displaced and over 2,000 lost their lives. But the not so bad news is that the refugees who are arriving now in the Ugandan refugee camps have been well received by the government and the communities here. There are no reports of incidences of widespread hatred or violence against them. However, a few cases of violent, tribally motivated conflicts among refugees, particularly South Sudan communities in the refugee camps, periodically occur. For instance, in a recent church dispute among clergy in South Sudan caused internal communal fights back in the refugee camps in Uganda, while in a separate incident caused by conflicts over water, a fight between refugee youth and youth from host communities led to severe injuries of a young lady this month.
Yes,
Now,
you have 30 seconds.
whatever. All right. So whatever the cause of this black on black hatred or lack of knowledge, definitely lack of knowledge at its core. And so we need to know who we are as Africans, to be self-assured and take pride in our Africanness. Our Blackness, of course, is beauty to be celebrated, and we have to accept this fact not as a burden, as others would like us to believe, but as a gift from God. This is, in my humble opinion, the keyword to Afrophobia, and it has that all of us have is to need to have a serious understanding of our true history as an ancient people on this planet. We are Africans and Black by providence and not by choice. And even if I were to be given a choice to choose, I would definitely choose to be Black 1,000 times, because I know that God made me Black for a reason and never makes mistakes. That is why I am proud of being Black. And to that end, these Pan-African history classes are really helping us to discover our true identity so that we can liberate ourselves from this self-hate. And I'm forever grateful to I Love Black people for this wonderful initiative. I am because we are. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you very much for our brother Joseph from South Sudan. I am because we are. Up next, we're going to have our brother Shahid Kasim from Ghana. Yes, Shahid, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, you have 3 minutes to present your report.
Good afternoon to my fellow African contingents on this platform. It's a privilege once again to be given the opportunity to speak on behalf of Ghana. I join my fellow Africans to speak on the team the importance of preserving and promoting African languages as a means of cultural preservation and identity. As you're all aware, languages has two main functions. It helps in communication and gives a group of people a sense of identity and pride. People usually identify themselves with a certain language. Various groups of people use a certain jargon that is only comprehensible to people within. Language always carries meaning and references beyond itself. The meaning of a particular language represents the culture of a particular social group. To interact with a language means to do so with the culture, which is its reference point. Identities are symbolized through languages, and languages are used to indicate identities by those who speak them. Also, it is used by people to categorize other people according to the language they speak. Language display an essential part of life for nearly every person in the world. So as Africans, it is important that we preserve our local languages. That goes with the names, that goes with the way of life. When you look at African languages, even though there are many, but the culture is almost the same. So we urge all Africans to come out with a particular language within Africa so that we can use it in Africa as our official language. That, I think, will be better than using the foreign languages as our official languages. Ladies and gentlemen, on this platform, let me quickly go to current affairs. We all, as Africans, try to fight to liberate ourselves mentally and to do away with Afrophobia. Quite recently, as I said earlier on, I am staying in the border town, and I am always in the best position to give testimonies. Where I stay is closer to Burkina Faso. Of late, they are carrying people's believed to be the Fulani ethnic group from Ghana to Burkina Faso. Every day, about 50 or more than 50 people will be carried from Ghana to Burkina Faso. And these people are people that have come to seek asylum in Ghana. So I think it's another act of Afrophobia, which as Black people, we should frown against. On current affairs also, we are going to organize a Panafest Emancipation Day 2023 in my community, Paga, in the Upper East region of Ghana. And it's going to start on the 19th. The theme of this year's celebration is reclaiming the African family, confronting the past to face the challenges of the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, on this platform, I will end here. So the next time I've given the opportunity, I will continue. I am because we are. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Shahid Kasim from Ghana. I am because we are. Up next, you're going to have our brother Ali Jobe from the Gambia. Yes, Jobe, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Ma. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. You have 3 minutes to present your report.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for all the participants for making up to another session. It is unfortunate for a couple of weeks I was not able to be here, but I am happy to be back to join my fellow Africans in different countries. I am Ali Job, representing the Gambia. I just wanted to discuss about the issue of the challenges that youths are facing when it comes to the sub-region, that is the Africa. Of course, young people are being deprived to take part in their governance, and of course, they have been denied for their voice to be heard. Fully knowing that when you look at the issue of youth participation in decision making and in politics in Africa, it is very, very minimal. One could be in a form of fear to involve in decision making. But I think we need to pave a way, whereas we should make sure that we engage youth in decision making from the local authorities to government level, so that so that the African Union Agreement 2030 will be achieved, will be enhanced. And the second thing also is about the issue in Africa. It is getting increasing. African Charter that almost 951 people died in 6 months by taking this Mediterranean way, that is to go through back way to enter in Europe. Almost 900 Africans, to be more precise, West Africans died, along the way, which is very, very disheartening to our African population. I think our authorities need to look into that issue to make sure that we combat illegal migration, because we are losing a lot of our energetic young people that are taking the way. I think it is very, very important thing for us to look into that issue to minimize the youth, because it's the young people that are into that thing to explore into Europe. They need to have a sense of willingness and to know that we can make it here. But not only that, the government also have a role to play by driving policies that is youth agenda to make sure that they create avenues for the youth, create that they surround them with money that will be helpful for them to start off with a business that is about encouraging them in the area of entrepreneurship and then to encourage them in the area of sport as well. Um, Not only that, I just want to look at the issue of illicit drugs in the Africa, to be more precise, in West Africa. A lot of young people resort to these drug abuses, which as a result increase conflict in the country, in the sub-region. Drug, as the Drug Law Enforcement Agency statistics in the Gambia stated that almost 60% of the crimes occur in the country caused by these illicit drugs, which need to be thoroughly looked into. Because if the youth, young people, the population of almost 65% of youth, if they resort to this drug abuse, the future of that particular country or the continent, Africa, it is going to be in a limbo. This is what I have for you. I am because you are. But before I rest on my case, I would also love to host an Pan-African summit in my country, in my capital city, the Banjul. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Ali Jobe. From the Gambia, I am because we are. Yes, people who are following us on Facebook, if you have any question, you can drop it in the comment section. We'll be able to answer you. Yes, we're going to continue with the Pan-African Healthcare class with Nana Akua. Yes, Nana Akua. Can you hear us?
Greetings, good morning, I hear you.
Yes, good morning.
Greetings, everyone. Hello, Yvonne and Curtis, and Candace usually pops her head in, and I know this is her background, but she still is usually on there. I don't see her, and everyone else who's not able to turn their camera on. Welcome to the Pan-African Healthcare lecture for today. So last week Yvonne, the person speaking when I first came on, is that Abubakar is in Ghana? Who spoke?
In Ghana, we have Zoe Owusu and Shahid Kasim. They're from Ghana.
The one who was speaking when I speaking this morning.
Oh, okay. It was Shahid Kasim.
Which one?
Shahid Kasim. I think they just dropped. Yeah.
They're not on?
Yes.
They mentioned Upper East region in Ghana, which is one of the 5 regions that I have a computer center in school there. So I was going to invite him to visit a place in Boga, which is in the Upper East region. So I don't know. And I just couldn't figure out who was speaking. So I was gonna private message them, but feel free to email or message me if you're in that area, and I'd love for you to go by and visit the school where I have a computer center. So we are going to talk about nutrition. We started off last week, and if I pull number one. So we started off last week talking about essential nutrients, what the essential nutrients are, and we talked a little bit about I think our primary macronutrients when we talked about proteins and fats and carbohydrates. And so we're going today to talk about our micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals. The charts that I have here are from the Food and Drug Administration here in the US. And I think it's just a good chart to give you what the vitamins are, what they do for the body, and where you can find them. What I will add to this today is a chart on herbs that naturally contain the different micronutrients that the body needs. And I don't know, oh yeah, so I did include here in this packet. And so, I will highlight a few, but I want to also add and give the option of herbs that contain vitamins and minerals, as opposed to just the option of going out and buying synthetic or man-made vitamins. So of course, we always want to focus on food sources, including herbs, in addition to, if need be, actual pills or vitamin or mineral supplements. So let's highlight a few of the vitamins that the body needs. And we'll start with vitamin A. I won't go through all of them, but vitamin A, we know this is important for growth and development, important for the immune function, reproduction, red blood cell formation, skin and bone formation, as well as vision, right? Our regular vitamin A is usually going to be animal source if you're buying it in supplement form. Beta carotene is the plant-based source. But in terms of foods, right, we know that the foods that naturally contain vitamin A are cantaloupes, carrots. Most people only know carrots, right? But we know that dairy products, eggs, green leafy vegetables, pumpkins, red peppers, sweet potatoes, these all naturally contain vitamin A. I skipped over the fortified cereals. What you'll find in a lot of options is if there's fortified where they've kind of added to milks or cereals or things of that nature, clearly it's not a natural source of that supplement. It has been fortified with it. So if ideally you can use one of these other options to get the natural source of the essential nutrient, that's going to be your better option. I'm looking through my folder to find, so I don't have to scroll through on the screen. I want to also, as I go through the herbs and the vitamins and minerals as well. So in addition to these food options, we know that herbs like eyebright, elder, flax seeds, comfrey, alfalfa, catnip, dandelion, echinacea, and probably a few more, we know these are also high naturally contain vitamin A. If we are, let's skip down, and we know that B vitamins are a whole family of B. So we know the B vitamins are responsible for immune function, hair, skin, and nails, helps with the nervous system, helping to bring calm into the body, manage stress, red blood cell formation, protein, carbohydrate, and fat metabolism, and some other things, right? We know that food sources for B vitamins are chickpeas, fruits, potatoes, salmon, tuna, eggs, dairy products, poultry, things of that nature. Some herb sources are alfalfa, burdock, catnip, cayenne, mullein, chickweed, ginseng, and many others. But red raspberry, horehound, all of these are natural herbal sources for your B vitamins. When we're talking about vitamin C, we know that this is necessary for fighting off disease and infections, wound healing. It helps with collagen and connective tissue formation. And again, most people are going to use it to boost their immune system, fight off colds, flus, other infections, things of that nature. Food sources include broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cantaloupe, citrus fruits and juices like oranges and grapefruit, fruit, peppers, strawberries, tomatoes. And then we know that there are herbs that are high in vitamin C, like elderberry, cranberry, alfalfa, garlic, comfrey, nettle, chickweed, dandelion, and parsley. Okay. Vitamin D, I constantly have this conversation with people these days. It seems like most people are deficient in vitamin D. I'm convinced that it has to do with how our food is grown, and if we are consumers of meat, how our animals are raised and fed. I think we have the opportunity to be in the sun and get a natural source of vitamin D. So I would definitely go to the food source as being a problem in terms of getting enough vitamin D. But we know that vitamin D is important for blood pressure regulation, bone growth, calcium balance, hormone production, immune function, and nervous system function. Food sources include eggs and fish, dairy products, fish liver oil, things of that nature. Usually this might be difficult for people who have strictly a plant-based diet, but there are many herbs that are high in vitamin D. These include alfalfa, chickweed, eyebright, oat straw, mullein, thyme, red raspberry, sarsaparilla, and a few others. So if you don't necessarily consume, and then of course, and I left out all these fortified, but again, that means they've had to add the vitamin D into these juices and drinks and cereals and dairy products. So ideally, if you can get them from food sources, including herbs, this is going to be your best option. Vitamin E, we know this is important for blood vessel formation, immune function, resisting disease, and fighting off illnesses. We know that we find this in peanuts, peanut butter, vegetable oils, nuts, seeds, green vegetables such as spinach and broccoli. And again, you see there these fortified cereals. But we also know that the herbs that are high in vitamin E is alfalfa, ginseng, golden seal, burdock, dandelion, echinacea, horehound, skullcap, eyebright, a few others. Now, anybody, and I know that the list of the herbs are not here, but has anyone identified or can hear a repeat of some of these same herbs? Please indulge me and type it in the chat, because there are some that I have repeated even through this short list. There are some of these herbs that I consider super herbs, right? We've talked about superfoods in the past, and we'll talk about that, I think either, I don't know if it's in this packet or next week, but these herbs that are highly nutritive to where they contain a lot of different vitamins and minerals, I would consider super herbs. Are there any that you've heard a few times, even in us just talking from A to E up to this point? There's at least two that I've mentioned several times. So let's talk about, and I'll wait because I do want you to indulge me and type it in the chat. So let's move on to vitamin K. We know that this is important for blood clotting. If you don't hear about vitamin K for anything else, so usually people who have any bleeding disorders, If they're going into surgery and there's a concern, or you have a dangerous job and you're at risk of some sort of injury and such, there's always a concern of whether or not you have enough vitamin K so that your blood can naturally clot if you were to get cut or injured in some way and you start to bleed. So this, and it's also important for strong bones, but vitamin K is one of those that's sort of rated, we don't hear a lot about. And in food is primarily found in vegetables. And in herb sources, that list is also a little short, but here we'll repeat a couple things. The natural sources, vitamin in herbs is alfalfa, gutta-cola, corn, and slippery elm. Now let's see. Nobody has typed. Has no one heard any of the herbs that I've mentioned more than once? But let's move on. So, you know, biotin, most people talk about biotin as it relates to supplements where you'll find in these hair, skin, and nail supplements, but we know that it's important for energy storage and, of course, the metabolism of our macronutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. So you'll find those raspberries, salmon, whole grains, eggs, things of that nature. In herb form, catnip, chickweed, dandelion, fenugreek, golden seal, and red clover. Folic acid or folate, and some of these are as common or popular. So I'll skip some of these, but we know everything is important, whether it's at whatever stage of life we're in, or whatever our bodies are doing or creating, and that sort of thing. So I think I will, in the interest of time, skip through some of these, but know that all of these are important. Your niacin, your riboflavin, and all of these are important vitamins to the body as well. But let's go down to our minerals. Calcium, we know this is a concern, as they've noted here, for most Americans. I don't think we often get good sources of calcium, especially in supplementation form, because usually calcium carbonate is made from different seashells that they find in the ocean. It's a cheap way to make a calcium product. If you're going to do a supplement of calcium, it should be a calcium citrate. But as you know, I'm getting to, we always want to find it in our foods, including herbs. But calcium is important for blood clotting, bone and teeth formation, the constriction and relaxation of blood vessels, for hormone secretion, muscle contraction, and the nervous system in general. We'll find natural sources of calcium from tofu, from green leafy vegetables, from dairy products, from certain seafoods with bones in them, such as salmon and sardines. You'll also get it from almonds, rice, coconut, and hemp milks. And then, of course, some fortified foods, which is usually how most people get it. But good news, there are herbs that are high in calcium. They include horsetail, Irish moss, fennel, elderberry, dandelion, alfalfa, ginseng, and many others. Kelp, red raspberry, Cascara sagrada. There's several others. So there are many natural sources of calcium, and you don't have to resort to the calcium carbonate cheap supplement that you'll find in stores. I think a good complement to calcium is magnesium. So let's get down to magnesium. These two usually help the other absorb into the body. We know that magnesium is good for blood pressure regulation, for blood sugar regulation, bone formation, hormone secretion, energy production, muscle contraction, the nervous system, heart, protein formation, many different things. Usually people think of calcium as related to the bone. Most people will think of magnesium relating to the muscles. You'll find magnesium in avocados, bananas, beans, peas, dairy products, green leafy vegetables, nuts and pumpkin seeds, potatoes, raisins, wheat bran, whole grains. Herbal sources will include valerian, red clover, dandelion, alfalfa, nettle, kelp, red raspberry, wood betony. Again, we've had some repeats there. I think there's some chats. I'm gonna go through one more and I'm gonna go see who has answered my question. Let's talk a little bit about potassium. So we know this is also noted as another concern for a lot of Americans, or a lot of people in general, is not getting enough potassium. And most people only know about bananas as a source of potassium, but we will list a few others here for you. But we know that potassium is important for blood pressure regulation, carbohydrate metabolism, fluid balance, growth and development, heart function, muscle contraction, nervous system function, and protein formation. And supplementation with potassium will also be important because even these pills in particular, you cannot crush them or break them up as they are. So, you know, there's even something there in terms of buying it in supplement form, has to be taken in a very particular way. And usually the pills are a little large, which is why people will try to crush them, but they do not absorb and work as they could when you do that. So finding natural sources of your potassium is going to be important. So you'll find this again, not only in bananas, but from beet greens, from milk, from oranges, from potatoes. Broccoli is not listed here, but that is a good source of potassium as well. Yogurt, white beans, tomatoes, spinach, another great one, prunes. And then there are several herbs that are high in potassium as well. Horehound, red raspberry, comfrey, alfalfa, chamomile, blue cohosh, parsley, yarrow, and some other herbs. So let's see. Yeah, well, so what I'm trying to get to are the herbs that I mentioned several times. Yes, vitamin K is very essential. And most people, as I said, overlook the vitamin K, but your ability to clot your blood is very important. Okay, so nobody heard me say catnip or alfalfa or dandelion several times. So this is sort of what I was looking for. These are some of the herbs on the list that I would consider as super herbs. They should go under that superfoods list. But these herbs, you can't go wrong. If red raspberry, I would also add to that list. Catnip, red raspberry, alfalfa especially, dandelion, even chickweed. There's at least 4 that are kind of consistently listed on this chart of herbal sources of vitamins and minerals. I wanted to point that out because if you are not a pill taker, if you're not good at synthetic vitamins and mineral supplements, and you want a natural alternative, even if it's some of these foods that are listed that are not your favorite, these herbs can be really beneficial to your health. And you won't necessarily feel like, oh, I'm taking a bunch of pills, because you may use these in your cooking and your herbal teas. You may encapsulate them yourself, the actual herbs. You may make it in hot tea or iced tea. Let me point that out, because I, for one, am not a hot tea drinker, even though I don't mind the tea. But this, I think, is really a good way of adding these herbs or foods to your diet and getting the health benefit of these vitamin and mineral packed items to your, your daily diet. Let's go back up here. I want to mention iron. Chromium is also important. It'll be essential for folk who are diabetic and have some blood sugar imbalances and some insulin insufficiency, things of that nature. Chromium, again, is good for insulin function, and it's necessary for proteins, carbohydrates, and fats to metabolize in the body. You'll find this naturally in broccoli, fruits like apples and bananas, grapes and orange juices, meats, spices like garlic and basil, turkey, and whole grains. And of course, if you are familiar with the herb stevia, this is a really good source of chromium as well. But to iron, a lot of people are anemic or iron deficient. This will be another one that may be difficult for folk who, or maybe not so much as the B12, but and even the calcium. So there are some good plant-based options for iron, but a lot of times people resort as a quick fix to meat or dairy products for it. But we know that iron is important for energy production. We know it's important for growth and development, for immune function, red blood cell formation, reproduction, and wound healing. We'll find it naturally in beans and peas, dark leafy greens, meats, poultry, prunes and prune juice, raisins, seafood, whole grains. And there are a plethora of herbs that are excellent as an iron source. Sarsaparilla, garlic, skullcap, ginseng, dandelion, alfalfa, bilberry, fenugreek, nettle, yerba mate, yellow dot, horehound, things of that nature. So these are all going to be very important in getting enough iron in the body. And so there are several others I'm going to skip through, and I think zinc is the last one I'd like to mention. I like to mention zinc because this becomes very important for people who have heart issues. I think this is a mineral to take note of for most men, and it's worth mentioning here. We know that zinc is essential for growth and development, for immune function, for nervous system function, for protein formation, reproduction, taste and smell, and wound healing. Our natural sources for zinc are going to be beans and peas, beef, dairy products, nuts, poultry, seafood, whole grains. Pumpkin seeds should be listed in this as well. And other, well, it did say nuts, but it didn't say seeds. So pumpkin seeds in particular are excellent source of zinc. And then the herbs that are good, and it's green leafy, green leafy vegetables are not on here either, but that's also a good source of zinc. But herbs like echinacea, dandelion, cayenne, alfalfa, burdock, horsetail, red clover, these are all good herbal sources for zinc. And I point out that zinc is essential for men because with each ejaculation, a man loses zinc from the body. So depending on whatever habits you have and whatever your routine, you have to make effort to add zinc into your body, okay? You will lose it at a higher rate than, say, women would. So in this packet is the list. I just didn't want to keep scrolling through this herbal list of the vitamin and mineral nutrients. So if you need this list, I know I was just kind of listing off a lot of herbs, but if you need this list, you can email me for this. And then this part, just again, to give some highlights to what we spoke about last week is where to start. So a lot of times when we're putting effort into how to do better in our diet after we've assessed, and we did that little checklist, I believe that was last week, and we, you know, have an idea of how to assess how well we're doing with our eating habits. But a good place to start is to kind of do that self-evaluation, figure out how many sugary foods you're eating, how much water you're consuming, how many fried foods, how much salty foods, whether you're doing predominantly cooked foods, or are you including raw, live fruits and vegetables in your diet. All of these are sort of the first steps. And then paying attention to water intake. That is another essential nutrient that I didn't spend a lot of time. We know that water is essential. We know that 2/3 of our body, or 66% or so of the body, is water. We know that there are some really hydrating foods that we can also consume if, in fact, we are not doing well with our water intake. So in conjunction with being very purposeful on consuming enough water, to help us with that, we can add certain hydrating foods like your melons or your cucumbers or your parsley and things of that nature that are really predominantly water-based. We know that cutting out these sugary drinks, and sometimes we just focus on sodas, right? But it's not just sodas that is the problem. Fruits are important, fruits are good for you, but we also know that a lot of fruit juices are full of sugar. Most will add sugars and sweeteners like high fructose corn syrup and things of that nature. So a lot of times we have to not only stop sodas, but also fruit drinks or fruit juices. And I'm glad I really said that by accident, but maybe not. Fruit drinks is a whole nother thing, because for sure a fruit drink will have added sweeteners and usually artificial sweeteners that are going to be pretty much making the fruit that it contains null and void, because a lot of these fruit drinks will contain maybe 10% natural fruit and the rest is going to be sugar water. So I wanted to find the handout. Yeah, the 10 top hydrating foods. So I mentioned cucumbers, watermelon, pineapple, celery. How could I leave out celery? Tomatoes, cantaloupe, pears, grapefruit, blueberries. All of these are 90%, 95%, 96% water. So in addition to drinking just pure water, these hydrating foods can be helpful as well. So that's a good place to start, including more alkaline foods. And let's see, is it this chart that talks about alkalinity? Another thing to do is to focus on whether I'm eating predominantly cooked foods. Start including more raw, uncooked live foods that have not been prepared, or low temperature cooking. So if there's been any preparation or heating, I should say, then no more than 110, 115 degrees. So low temperature cooking or raw foods are going to be best. And what goes along with that is maybe looking into an alkaline diet, 60 to 70% of alkaline forming foods as opposed to acid forming foods, okay? So we know that our high acid foods are things like eggs, mayonnaise, fish, bacon, beef, chicken, lamb, veal, these types of things. And then on the reverse, we know that the higher alkaline forming foods are going to be your avocados, beets, carrots, potatoes, spinach, rhubarb, things of that nature. And then we have what we would consider kind of medium or moderate levels of alkaline forming foods. As you see, these are predominantly our fruits and vegetables. These are going to be the foods you're going to want to consume more so than these. So it's not to say you wouldn't consume any nuts, like walnuts or Brazil nuts or any of your cheeses or eggs or fish or meat, but you're going to limit it to 30 to 40% of your diet, allowing for 60 to 70% of your diet being these fruits and vegetables listed here on the alkaline side. Because we know that acid forming foods cause dehydration and stiffness of the joints, stagnation in the body, and everything slows down. Oxygen, blood, so forth is not circulated as well. And then you get certain conditions, arthritis usually, and other types of condition because there's too much acid in the body. So these are all just good places to start. Other options, let me actually go back. Other options is if you choose to follow a particular type of diet. Some people will choose a raw food diet, or even if it's temporary, once or twice or 4 times a year, you may say, oh, okay, I'll do raw foods for X number of days, or oh, I'll do juicing or juice fast for a certain number of days each season, or I'll follow the alkaline diet, you know, throughout, and still, you know, doing meats or flesh if I choose, or dairy if I choose, but limiting that to that 30 or 40%. Some people will follow a very specific diet, a macrobiotic diet, which mainly focuses on vegetarian vegetables and grains mainly. But they have sort of strict, well, they have times and ways that you eat and that sort of thing. And then there's a diet where it actually combines a number of concepts: eating organic, eating live, clean foods, primarily vegetarian, including raw juices, and including certain supplements and cleansing or detox regimens that flush out the body. So there are certain types of diets you may choose, but sometimes people feel that's a little too restrictive, and they'll just start doing things that they can do and incorporate easily. These may include this list, and we'll definitely talk about food combining, but it may include this list here, which I think is also a good place to start, because these are things you can just incorporate on a regular basis. Eat whole foods, particularly fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains, vegetable proteins like legumes, nuts, and seeds, right? Eat high quality foods, not prepackaged, refined foods, things that are in the center of our grocery store that have hydrogenated oils and such added to them to, you know, expand their shelf life. You want the foods that are on the perimeter, perishable foods, fruits and vegetables, things that will go bad, things that have to be fresh or only kept for a certain limited time, so that you're getting higher quality foods that's not full of our bad fats and high sugars or artificial sugars and other additives to sustain them. You want to drink no more than 4 ounces of liquids with your meal. We know that this dilutes the digestive juices, so this is a bad habit. So if you're drinking with your meals, limit it to 4 ounces of liquids. If you can restrict it to either 30 to 60 minutes before and after your meals, that's going to be a better option. Chew your food thoroughly, eat in a relaxed environment, never when you're upset, whether it's excessive joy or whether it's extreme depression or sadness. You want to eat when you're feeling well and kind of balanced and in a relaxed environment. And ideally, most of us eat socially, right? But also if you can eat and not do a lot of talking and other activities while eating, and if you can just focus on eating, that's also a better healing environment for eating your food for proper nutrition. Get sufficient fiber by eating the majority of your foods. This is from another part of the book, but this is basically eating your high fiber foods, whether it's flax seeds or psyllium, or whether it's raisins or dates or prunes or things that we know have high fiber. Our fiber rich fruits like our apples and berries and citrus and things of that nature. Getting sufficient fruit pectins and other natural grains that are high in fiber. This is going to be important. Drink 6 to 8 glasses of water. I would actually amend this to say half your weight in ounces, right? So most of us need more than 64 ounces of water a day. But I guess I would say if you're at least getting that, you're still doing well. I have to say I have not personally been doing well with my water intake as of late, and I think my body is feeling it and giving me indication of it. And so when we notice that we're kind of off track, we just kind of put ourselves back on track and focus on. But most of us probably need a little more, probably 80 to 100 ounces of water a day. Use whenever necessary nutritional supplements and herbs as appropriate. A lot of times this may include like digestive enzymes so that we are digesting our food properly. This will tie directly into our food combining routines, and we won't have time to talk about that today. But especially if you know you're not eating well and combining your foods well, a digestive enzyme, or if you have chronic heartburn or acid reflux or indigestion or bowel disorders like diarrhea or constipation, things of this nature, you may need something like a hydrochloric acid or a digestive enzyme or pancreatic enzyme supplement to help with your digestive process. Use alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, and all that in extreme moderation, if at all, right? Beware if you excessively have to use a lot of prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs, and hopefully not recreational drugs, but if so, you will always have to do a liver cleanse. If you know you're on a certain set of prescription drugs, or know you have a certain habit or routine, and you know that you're drinking maybe too much alcohol, anything that's going to put extra pressure or toxins into the liver, you have to, on a very regular basis, do a liver cleanse, a liver detox. We'll talk specifically about detox in a few weeks, but we know that there are certain herbs that are great for detoxing the liver, like milk thistle and dandelion and yellow dock and burdock and things of that nature. If you are consuming alcohol and caffeine and prescription drugs and things like that, we have to do a liver cleanse. Exercise is important. We have to move our bodies. This can be strength, flexibility, endurance training. It can be weightlifting, or it can be our cardiovascular, whether it's walking, jogging, or being on an elliptical or a stair climber or a treadmill. But something to moving the body. I've said this many times before. I'm not a gym person, but I try to every night do something to purposely move my body. And it may be me just marching in place, right? Or doing some high steps, or sort of like military style marching, but something to get the blood pumping, the heart rate up, but exercise is going to be key. In addition to whatever additions you can add to your day in terms of walking, parking a little further from the door, or taking the steps as opposed to an elevator, taking the long way around. Even if you work in an office, when you have breaks in your work or in between classes, purposely taking time out to walk around, circle around your building, circle around the school, or up and down the different floors in the building, or what have you, something to exercise and move our bodies. It could be the meditative movements like some yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, but something to move the body. And then, of course, as a colon therapist, you know that I will always stress the importance of elimination. Regular elimination is going to be very, very important. Diet, exercise, stress levels, all of this impact your bowel regularity. So at least once or twice a day is going to be good. If you do it as many times as you eat, fine. But at least once or twice a day is going to be ideal. So your diet should support that and help create a healthy elimination schedule or routine. But if not, whatever extra you have to do, if you have to take some herbal laxatives that will move the bowels, do that. Cascara sagrada, aloe vera, senna, slippery elm, all of these are good options for you. So I am out of time. We'll talk about food combining next week, and food additives and some other things. And as always, I bid you good health and peace.
Yes, thank you very much, Nana Akua, for this wonderful lecture. I shared your email in the comment section, and also there are some few questions that has been asked. Maybe you can check them. But thank you very much. I am because we are, and have a nice evening. Yes, up next we are going to have Dr. Wright Tyreen in the Pan-African history class. Yes, Dr. Wright, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, you'll see me in 1 second. Welcome everyone to the Pan-African History and Organizing course. Just get my camera ready. So last week you had 2 films to watch that should have been part of you. Hello, part of your repertoire for the week in terms of this course and its readings. You'll see me in 2 seconds. I just need to get my stand together. So first was Kwame Ture, and he was speaking on the history of Pan-Africanism. And then second was the Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, which was the film by Spencer Wells. I don't know where I'm at today. I'm in a different part of the house, so it's like very bright. I don't know how this is gonna work with the camera, but we'll see. So you'll see me in a second. So the second piece was Spencer Wells, The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey. And he takes you all around the world mapping DNA. And the point of us using that is really to drive home this point that to be human means to be African. Okay, that is the point of that particular piece. And hopefully you all got that. And I will talk a little bit more about it. Hold on, let me get my light. Let's see. So that was the point of that particular piece. Let me see. Okay, good. You guys can see me. I'm thinking now I have too much light here. I can make it a little funny. Okay, so that was the point of that particular piece, The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, the idea and understanding that to be human is to be African. And that's why we use that, because that is a scientific approach to addressing that particular issue. Okay, so Spencer Wells, if you watch the film, he goes around, he begins with the Khoisan of Southwest Africa, right? One of the known oldest groups of people in the world. And he essentially tests their blood and gets their DNA and establishes that they are, he talks about it being a tree, right? And so if you will, they're not the roots of the tree, but they are on the trunk of the tree in terms of the human family tree, right? So they're the trunk of the tree. They are common ancestors for a large number of the world's people. That being said, he maps through DNA, the Y chromosome, the migratory pattern of human beings from Africa through the world, right? And establishes that they are, that human beings, in fact, the Homo sapiens sapien is indigenous to the African continent. This is, this is an undisputed fact at this point, right? There are many people who would love to disprove it. Maybe even Spencer Wells, right, might have wanted to prove or disprove it. The point is that over and again, archaeological discoveries and science, it keeps coming right back to this point. To be human means to be African, period, right? So as we go through this course and we talk about even Pan-Africanism, I mean, and what that means for us, we have to establish that to talk about human beings, period, means to talk about African people. And now what is Black for us? Black is the normal human jacket. It is melanin, right? This is, so we are African people. If you are human, you are African, first and foremost, right? And then what is the natural characteristic of human beings? It is to manifest melanin, right? And in the last 400 to 500 years, we have this younger group of the human family tree, which would be Europeans in particular, come and create this construct called race, right? And those of us who manifest melanin, still manifest melanin on our skin, because human beings in general, we all have melanin in our bodies. A great deal of it is in our organs, right? Some of us know this. But those of us who still manifest it on our skin as the natural means to protect ourselves as we move around the earth, this is a natural thing. Europeans have created this construct called race that has categorized us as what? Black, right? Themselves as white. Now, no one actually is either one of these colors, but they have created these social constructs, right? And so one thing about the film, The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey with Spencer Wells, I do want to make this clear. It is not an adoption or an affirming of all the statements he makes in there. This film, as I will do with other films to come, is a way to extract a particular point, right? Meaning, I utilize this film for the purpose of introducing the people coming through this seminar to a conversation, a scientific conversation about who is human and what it means to be human. Okay, that is the particular point. Now, things like, I'll show you, there are things that I would critique if this were another context. I would critique and even criticize. For example, Spencer Wells makes a comment in there that Europeans created science, right? And I started to address this last week very briefly before you watched the film, but let's just be very clear, Europeans did not create science, okay? They are too young to have created science. They have advanced the area of DNA and DNA mapping, right? Testing DNA. They have created that. However, science itself has emerged with the first human beings on this earth, going as far back as ancient Kemet, right? We know that to this day, you can go to the Louvre, or you can go to the British Museum, or you can even go to the Metropolitan Museum and see the human remains of our ancestors that have been preserved for over 5,000 years at this point, okay? To do that, you must have more than a handle on science and biological sciences, right? So we know that science was not created by Europeans, right? So if I was teaching about the contradictions and inaccuracies in that film, that is what I would start with. However, we don't care. We're not here for that. We just want to see the DNA mapping. And we are sort of getting a taste of the attitudes that the world's people have towards the assertion that to be human means to be African, right? As it goes around the world testing different DNA, when he finally gets to the Americas and speaks to the who? Navajo, right? Amazing thing. Speaks to the Navajo. And only the Navajo, I'm not saying the others did harbor, so the Aborigine of Australia had a very strong rejection of the idea that humanity, including them, had originated just right to the left of them in Africa. They were incited by that, right? Very early in the documentary. And then you saw in the end, his arrival in the United States and his conversation with the Navajo. And no person in the documentary that they had in it had the nerve to utter the word Negro, Negroid, or anything else other than the Navajo, which is very interesting. Okay, people that have been dominated by European culture here in their homeland, the Americas, somehow are uttering something that was taught to them about who we are, right, as Africans. That is the Negroid, because if you notice, they showed the images and he says, oh, the woman says, oh, these are the Negroid, they have Negroid features and this and that. Where did they get that from? Right? Where did that come from? Right? So it is for the purpose of two reasons: to establish scientifically that to be human is to be African, and to give you a little taste of what we already know, but are not necessarily exposed to every day in terms of the attitudes of the world's people, right? So we experience it in our own locales. We know what racism is. We know what the pathology of racism is. We know it in theory and we know it in praxis, right? That's why you're involved with I Love Black People. However, you got a chance to see what some people who we don't encounter every day, right, in Eastern Europe and other places, actually thought and felt about the fact that humanity is in fact Africa. Spencer Wells is not the first geneticist to do this. There is an Asian geneticist, a video clip is floating around the internet, who tried to test the blood of Asian individuals, in particular Chinese, to see if they had the DNA of a hominid called Homo erectus. Okay. And why would he do this? Well, why would this geneticist want to find out if they have this hominid that was not human conclusively in their DNA? Well, he would do this because he does already know as a geneticist that the Homo sapien, without dispute, is African. Let me say it another way. The modern human is African. Period. Undisputed scientific fact. So, yes, racism leads him to want to say, well, Asians and Chinese in particular, we're our own people. We don't come from Africa, right? But you could see from the face of the Khoisan people, their relationship to Asia, right? Off the bat. However, this Chinese geneticist wanted to say, maybe we are our own separate and independent branch of the human range, and we do not originate in Africa, and we did not migrate to Asia. We always existed in Asia, and we are separate and apart from the African human family tree. Well, much to his chagrin, he searched all over Asia for Homo erectus DNA. Nothing. All over Asia, again and again, the DNA went right back to Homo sapien sapien, which means it came right back to Africa. And you can see in the clip, I didn't show it here, but maybe I'll dig it up so that you can see. You can see he's like, well, you know, it just proves that we're all connected. Yes, but your hypothesis that you were seeking to prove is that we are not connected, that you were separate and apart. And therefore you could possibly try to say at some point or another, in fact, superior. But what the science did was bring you right back home to Africa, okay? And so to say that you have no connection to Africa is also to certainly say that you are questionably human, right? The Neanderthal was not human. Homo erectus was not human. These are all, just so people who are not very scientific, or don't know scientific history of humanity, there were a bunch of hominids, these animals, basically. They appeared similar to something that would emerge called the Homo sapien, but none of them were the Homo sapien. Okay, what's the difference between something like the Neanderthal and the Homo erectus and us is the frontal lobe. There are other differences. They did not talk as we do, difference in the throat and the larynx and the position of the voice box. But the significant difference is here in the cranium. A missing large portion of what we have as our frontal lobe is missing in these other creatures. And that is what definitively makes us human and definitively makes those hominids not human, right? What does the frontal lobe do? I'll tell you one of the things that it helps you do. It helps you plan. It helps you think. And what does planning help you do? Planning helps you ensure your survival. Right? A storm is coming. You can smell it. You know it. You can feel it. You can hear it. But you're not capable of problem solving in a way that you can protect yourself from it. So the storm comes and you perish. Right? Unlike what we deal with so often, right? We see these challenges between nature and humanity every day. A storm, a this, a that. And people have to what? Seek shelter, find shelter, figure out how they are going to what? Survive the storm. So that is the difference, right? And there are other physical differences between various hominids and the Homo sapien, but it's right here, right? This is the significant difference, the brain. And so that without dispute distinguishes the Homo sapien, the human, from every other hominid that has ever existed, period. So this is why I show you that film, because we need to get a common language amongst us and understand that being human means to be African first and foremost for most of that 200,000 to 300,000 years on Earth, and that's how long we have existed in this form. Most of that time, 200,000 to 300,000 years that humanity has existed, she has existed in Africa, and in the way that we are manifesting ourselves right here with melanin, identifiably what people would call Black, right? Which is our natural characteristic. Like it's a natural characteristic to have 2 hands and 2 feet and all of that. It is also a natural characteristic for us to manifest melanin in a way that it can protect us from the rays of the sun and from the environment in general. Okay, it's only been in the last 7,000 to 8,000 years, according to European scientists. This is not even, I have read the studies on this. This is according to them, they have only existed for 7, and I guess I should share that. I'll share that article where they talk about the existence of people who are identifiably classified as white or European. According to them, they have existed for the last 7,000 to 8,000 years. Okay. And we know this too, because in the recent past, there have been archaeological finds that found the remains of the first so-called Europeans, inhabitants of Europe. And who were they? They were Homo sapiens that came out of Africa and went up into Europe. And initially, they are identifiably what? Black. All the world's indigenous people, this is something you should have also gotten from the documentary. All the world's indigenous people are Black because they migrated out of Africa to the 4 corners of the world, if you will. And in those places, they have adapted both physically and biologically in various ways in order to survive in those regions of the world, right? But upon arrival, they are as African as anybody that you will find on the African continent. And so there was a recent archaeological find in Europe. They found a man that was 10,000 years old. And if you remember what I just said, this existence of people who classify themselves as whites and now European and white, now white, have only existed for 7,000 to 8,000 years. So upon arrival to Europe, they are identifiably Black, and they found the remains of one of these individuals. Now, because race is a construct, it's not real. They can't racialize him. However, he did have the DNA markers that let you know he was manifesting melanin. Okay. The levels of melanin were high, right, in the DNA, which means that they would have been Black. Okay, the remains of this individual they found. He was identifiably Black, and they digitally reconstructed him. And, he manifests as a Black person, identifiably Black person, right? So, once again, the purpose of all of this is so that we get common language and we bring relationships in terms of our background knowledge of what it means to be human. And it should embolden you and affirm you in the sense that when we talk about humanity, you should think to yourself, that's us, that's me, first and foremost, not secondary, because part of what racism has done is it has dehumanized, right? African people, Black people, right? There's a narrative in the last 400 to 500 years that has been imposed on us through the pathology of white supremacy and culture that says Black people, African people are less human. And in fact, scientifically, it is just the opposite. African people are the humans, right? I know that might hurt some people's feelings who are not signed up for this. Not any of you, but yeah, the humans, not just human, right? And so if you understand the difference, right? The humans, right? So bottom line is we're raising all ships to understand that we're talking about humanity, we're talking about African people, and African people are identifiably Black, right? And we talk about, this is part of the reason why entities like I Love Black People has to exist, because to be anti-African, to be anti-Black is to be anti-human as well, right? And this pathology of racism that decreases all of our life chances, meaning kills us prematurely in every way possible in every area of life, is a pathology that has only existed for the last 400 to 500 years. And we've been here a lot longer than that. We've been here 200,000 to 300,000 years. So can we outlive this pathology that has only existed for the last 400, 500 years? Can we destroy this pathology that has only existed for the last 400 to 500 years? Absolutely. We will certainly be here after that. We will, right? We were here long before that, right? So what doing the work you're doing in I Love Black People is about is consciously organizing to protect ourselves, to kill this pathology called racism that decreases our life chances. Okay. So I want you all to ask some questions about the film. I hope you watched it in its entirety. I'm going to talk about one other item, and then I'm move on and then say something how we are going to proceed. I think we're going to slash and then expand the cycle of our sessions, meaning that I think this 8-week session, I have to confirm because I just had a conversation about it this past week. We're going to expand, I guess, the cycle from 8 weeks to 16 weeks. And I will take each and every item. If you notice on the syllabus, there's a couple of items every week, right? Like, so normally this past week, you had 2 items. You had both films, Kwame Ture talking about Pan-Africanism, and the film, The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey. Side note, I teach this in the seminar format, which is, professional, living graduate level, right? So there's no little petty quizzes or tests. The material, which you would not probably come across every day, is the seminar, is the content of the course, right? The readings, which you will get in PDF format through Telegram or through, WhatsApp, or however you're signed into the course, is the course content, right? So what I'll do is, like, so for example, you had 2 items last week that you should have consumed and gone through: the film on the film on Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, and the short piece by Kwame Ture on the history of Pan-Africanism, right? I'm discussing the film at length and going a little more in depth, as opposed to discussing both of those items. Next week, I will discuss in depth what Kwame Ture was talking about in that 11-minute video, and go into the history of Pan-Africanism, what it is in terms of definition, how it emerges. Pretty much go a little further in depth in terms of what Kwame Ture said, because he laid it out for you, right? The initial understanding of the history of Pan-Africanism. There's a little more to add to it and depth to give to that. So that's what we'll be doing. We'll be covering one item per session, as opposed to my lecture just being on multiple pieces, right? So this week coming up, I'm going to give you reading, but it is related to the history of Pan-Africanism, right? And I'll put that together with this conversation on Pan-Africanism that Kwame Ture introduced in the film, in the 11-minute video that I submitted to you, okay? I think, I'm trying to think of what else. I want to give you all an opportunity to talk to me about the film, The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey. What were your observations? Or what are your questions about it? How do you feel about this notion of humanity originating and emerging in Africa? And it gives it to you visually, right? Starting with the Khoisan. Was anybody surprised about, some of you may be on the African continent, so this is no surprise. You may know somebody who is Khoisan. That's not unusual. Anywhere in Southern Africa, you could find somebody who is connected, originating with Khoisan. I actually thought that Mandela was Khoisan, but he's not. He's Hausa, right? So he is not Khoisan, but he has, he resembles, right? Some of the Khoisan that you saw in the film, okay? But you can see the phenotype of the Khoisan and how some of the Khoisan's characteristic and features could be found in various groups of people throughout the world, right? Very easily. Certainly notably in Asia, right? With the, yes, Nelson Mandela was Hausa. The features of the Khoisan easily, when people say, oh, well, so-and-so has Chinese eyes. Well, no, this showed you that that's incorrect. To get what I was saying, why would anybody have Chinese eyes, right? Unless they're Chinese. Chinese have the eyes of the Khoisan, you know, they have the features of the Khoisan, not the other way around. And why am I saying that? Because the Khoisan are the older people, right? They're the older people. They are the progenitors of what would be Asian people in the future, and specifically Chinese and other Asian people that have carried that characteristic. But it is not Asian to have that characteristic. It is African, right? Doesn't that change the way, you know, some of us look at things? Oh, just the Chinese eyes. No. Why would anyone have Chinese eyes in Africa? Right? The Chinese have African eyes. Okay. On so many levels, we can say that. Right? Okay. So, but did you all make any other observations or you have any questions about it? So let me see. I'm looking. It's so funny because I'm on my device. I have the nerve to love to do this, even though, you know, I have a computer. I'm more than one computer, but I like to use my phone so I can move around even when I'm, you know, or at least not be tethered to one spot. But for some reason, when I look at your comments, it turns me sideways though. So let me see. Are there any questions? If you have any questions, type them in there, okay? About the film. Also, okay, yeah, melanin is I call melanin the human jacket, you know, like you really don't want to leave home without it, right? It is the human jacket. Point taken. Who is that? Dr. Obi. I hope it's her name. Yeah, melanin is the life. Yes. Europeans never created, right? You know, Europeans did not create science. I mean, it's just a fact, right? I mean, they're still trying to figure out ancient Egypt and things discovered that are existing in Timbuktu, right? Curtis Murphy, you said we don't know what the energy of racism is. You're asking me a question. I'm not sure I understand. Like, what is the energy of racism? Racism means it is a system that decreases our life chances, right? And that's a nice way of saying kill us prematurely. Okay, I can't capture this without switching my switching my screen. Curtis Murphy. Can you tell me, hold on. Well, when I turn it back around, I will capture what you shared, okay? What you said you also found. You said you're interested in, yes, melanin is everything, Dr. Obi. What caused the African gene to mutate? It's not a matter of mutation. It's more a matter of environment, diet. Yeah. So, yeah. So then you move to a place in the world where there's less sun and you're consuming a particular diet. If you want to talk about the stark contrast between Europeans and Africans, biologically, you're talking about, you know, equatorial people who consume meat sometimes, but have an abundance of vegetation. versus the Africans that migrate into Europe, right? What are they consuming? What are they eating? What are their what's their existence, right? Cold climate, not much sun, right? A heavy meat diet, because there's not as much vegetation. There is vegetation, but they're cold climates, fruits, sometimes, yes, and vegetables, right? Cold climate fruit that has fooled the world and recentered the Garden of Eden in Europe has been the apple, right? Apple is the fruit. The apple is a cold climate fruit. And what do you say when you tell people that Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden and Eve gave Adam an apple? You center the conversation of the supposedly or the first humans in a cold climate, when we know in fact the historical and literal Garden of Eden is certainly not in a cold climate, right? We know where the first human beings and the factual, I guess you'd say in a scientific sense, Garden of Eden would be. We know it in East Africa that human beings emerged first, right? We know that the historic or the earthly Garden of Eden in a literal sense would be somewhere around Tanzania and Kenya and at the foothills, maybe Arusha, at the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro. We know that it is there that human beings emerge, in the interior, further in the interior of Africa. We know the first human beings did not emerge in Europe, right? But you see how that's propaganda. Anyway, so hold on. So cold climate diet, heavy consumption of meat. I feel like I'm on the Nana Pua's realm now about food and things of that. But cold climate diets would be a lot of, carcass, right? Would be a lot of meat. It would be, cold climate vegetables versus, and some fruits, but not in abundance of that, right? So it will produce a particular physique. It will produce a particular physical body type, as opposed to a lot of vegetation and some meat, right? Racism is a construct used to dehumanize. Absolutely. Racism is absolutely a construct used to, dehumanize the humans, right? But melanin makes people the real humans. Well, melanin, yeah, melanin is a part of the human characteristic. Melanin is one of the natural characteristics, just like having a frontal lobe is characteristic of being a Homo sapien, as opposed to any of the other hominids, right? It's a distinguishing factor. Okay. It is the natural. And so, okay, let me give you an example of how it has harmed us. So someone said, what caused the mutation? So have any of you heard about this vitamin D deficiency that many Black people have in the Western Hemisphere? Many of us have vitamin D deficiency. Why? Because we have melanin. So we are meant to consume, we consume the sun, we consume the sun rays, and it produces vitamin D in our bodies. However, we're in an environment, not by choice for most of us who are out here in the Western Hemisphere, we're in an environment where we get less sun than we would have gotten on the African continent, right? We are built to be able to sun, direct sun, it not harm us, our skin, right? And draw vitamin D from that, which is an essential, not just vitamin, but it is really, D is really a hormone, right? So in a cold climate in the Western Hemisphere, where there are seasons where you can go for months and not get direct sunlight, what does that cause? It causes vitamin D deficiency. Okay, we are acclimated, we are built to withstand direct sun rays. Okay, and when we don't get that, there is a cost, it is a breakdown, right? A deficiency. And vitamin D deficiency leaves you vulnerable to certain diseases. That's without a doubt. Right? Everyone was saying during COVID, take some vitamin D, vitamin D, vitamin D. You know, some of the best doctors I know knew what the deal was, that what COVID was doing in the bodies of Black people had to do with this vitamin D deficiency. Now, I'm a doctor, but not an MD, so I'm gonna leave it right there. Oh, good. Morissette, I think. Morissette. Okay. This is a big shift for me. I hope I get added to the history group. Oh, okay, make sure. All right, so Morissette, make sure you write the administrator in here and be added to the group, the actual course. This is a course, so you know, if you want to be added to the course, you do have to contribute, respond, all of that. Okay. Write the administrator of I Love Black People right here in this chat, and she will add you to the course. Let her know, because this is only our second. This is really our second session, but first delve into the materials, right? I don't know, Dr. Obi. I mean, why are Europeans so stuck up on the real humans on the planet? I mean, I think that is, you know, that's a cultural thing, meaning like, I don't even want to go that far in that conversation, but I will just say that, you know, scarcity causes a certain response to the world people. So when I hear African people say things or Black people say things like, it's about survival of the fittest, I always think to myself, interesting that you are articulating something that is culturally in opposition to who you are. For the African worldview and reality, we know that we have emerged from agricultural realities. And that means that we do value people and do put emphasis on numbers, meaning to have a large, thriving population is a good thing. The values of the agriculturalist is, you know, you can never have too much land or too many children. Why? Because the children are the natural laborers of the land and beneficiaries and inheritors of the land. When you have, and what does the land produce? It produces food and produces a number of things that is going to sustain you, right? That being the case, and I see my time is pretty much up. I'm going to look at these last 6 messages. Don't post anymore. I want to get to the last 6 and then wrap up and tell you what to do next. You know, so we have, whether we know it or not, we emerge from agricultural cultures and realities with those values. But when you live in a part of the world where agricultural reality is experiencing scarcity, you are going to have a different worldview. It's not a secret that Europe does not hold a bulk of the world's resources. It is not a secret that, just think about what you ate today. Did you eat anything that came from Europe, particularly fruits and vegetables? No, you didn't. Did you utilize anything that wasn't manufactured in Europe, that originated in Europe? Very likely not. And this is not a new thing. I mean, even the European conversation and narrative about who they are talks about exploring, going outside of Europe. And why and what for? Because there is scarcity of certain resources, human and otherwise. And so they are in search of what they did not have and do not have. They talk about that. This is no secret: serfdom, being tied to the land, labor, and then there are social issues that push Europeans out into the rest of the world. So these are all cultural, environmental circumstances and realities that had an impact on what we consider to be present day Europeans or Caucasians. It has shaped their ideation. When you don't have enough food, yes, you think it's me or him. Right? But when that guy over there is responsible for you all producing an abundance of food, then you don't think I got to get him, it's me or him. You're like, we are going to produce this food, right? The ground is fertile. But when you don't have enough, you're like, me or him, and survival of it. So, culture shapes a great deal of how we are able to approach the world. Just think about, in your home, if you didn't have enough to eat in your home and all of you have to share, it would probably, and you do share, but someone may still be hungry. And what does that mean for that person? Do you think well when you're hungry? Do you sleep well? Generally, the human body does not sleep well when it's hungry. It actually usually will not let you go to sleep until you eat. So what is that like? Right? All of that, right? Contribute. So culture it's not so much like a mutation per se, as much as it is an adaptation to the environment that we all are in, right? Meaning we all are in. So African people are in a certain environment, Europeans come and existed in a certain environment. And now we're actually in, those of us who are in the United States, we're in some of the same environments. And in some places in Africa, we are sharing, the environment that exists there, right? And sometimes there's a clash of values, right? What happens when people who emerge from scarcity encounter people who historically have been produced in agricultural realities where abundance has been the norm, right? And I could go on and on that level, right? I don't know that racism comes from hate. It's a pathology, it's a pathological construct. And why do I use the word pathology? I use that word, I choose to use that word. Why? Because it's not real. So there the system is acting on, individuals are acting on something that's not real. Race is not real. Culture is. I love Melanin People Initiative. Yes. This is what I say. I say, so you're part of I Love Black People. I say we protect ourselves and we ride it out, and we have zero tolerance for anti-human behavior. All right, behavior that compromises our life chances of survival. Because racism, the system in and of itself is designed, yes, to decrease your life chances. And unequivocally, what does decrease your life chances mean? It means to make you die earlier, sooner than you should under natural and normal circumstances. Okay? It permeates every area of our life. This is why when people talk about, oh, why are people so caught up on the racism, this and that, racism is deadly. We know this, right? And let me just make it clear, this is why, you know, it could kill you on the street. You could be killed on the street because of you encounter somebody who has internalized this racialized pathology, right? And devalues your life. But you could also be killed in the hospital by indifference, right? You can also be killed, you know, doing something very natural like bringing a child into the world and them not responding to the needs of that mother, which we know is reason I have been on that issue about you know, Black woman maternal mortality since 2006, 2007. Now it's finally become a conversation that you hear more about, right? But our life chances or our high mortality rate is maternal mortality rate is very similar to the maternal mortality rate of women in Africa. So I'm saying African women in America, African American women, people who identify as that or classify as that, or Black women in America have the same or similar mortality rate in childbirth as women on the continent who may be giving birth in a home as opposed to a hospital. So we are closer. And why? Because we can be in a hospital bed next to a non-African person or non-Black person and get very different treatment, right? And counter what is considered a deadly indifference. Europeans are, this is according to them, Europeans, Caucasians are Homo sapiens, sapiens. They are human in DNA terms. But according to them, they have up to 8%, they can have up to 8% Neanderthal. Now, how do I know this? Because I teach human history, have taught human history, and they talk about it. You can go all over YouTube and see all the conversations and stories about Neanderthal. Now, let me just say this. If you're actually interested in the scientific history of humanity, you know, you can find a lot on YouTube, but I do want to warn you of something because there is some trickery in language, and I had this debate with many times you'll hear from European orators or Caucasian orators and researchers, they'll talk about Neanderthal as a human ancestor. This is not correct. But if you are in present time a European person or Caucasian person who is aware that the Neanderthal, which was a hominid that engaged in an admixture with a Homo sapien, which is an African. So let me just be very blunt. A Neanderthal, which was not human, could not speak, missing the frontal lobe, but has similar appearance to humans and Homo sapiens. Encounters one of the Africans that go into Europe, or some of the Africans that go into Europe, and there is an admixture. What is an admixture? Admixture is sex that produces an offspring. Admixture is sex, okay? And they actually have found one of the very young offspring of the human human and Neanderthal admixture in the recent past. They did find the remains of a young offspring of that kind of encounter. Caucasians, Europeans can have as high of 8% Neanderthal DNA in their gene pool. Okay, so they can have as high as 8%, the other 92% is Homo sapien, and with as high as 8%. Some of them don't have Neanderthal in their DNA at all. Some of them can have anywhere between 1 to 8% Neanderthal imprint. So when a European person, this has to do with rhetorical strategy and rhetorical structure. If a European is talking and about the Neanderthal and is aware of this, as many are, they will say that this is a contributor to who and what they are now. And for them, it is an ancestor. But this is the significant rebuttal and response to this. The Neanderthal is in no way responsible for the Homo sapien. In no way. Okay? So the Neanderthal does not evolve into the Homo sapien, the human. The Neanderthal is a genetic dead end. It is extinct. It is an animal that existed at one time, had encounters with Homo sapien humans in Europe, in Europe, produced some offspring, and those offsprings went on to reproduce. And this is why that imprint is in their DNA. However, with regard to Africa, African people, and humanity, the Neanderthal did not have that admixture in Africa, and it is not responsible in any way for the Homo sapien. And this is something that I've had to learn as a researcher, because someone started to debate me about, oh, well, why do this Neanderthal is referred to as a human ancestor? No, it's not. It's a human ancestor for Europeans. It can be for some Europeans, not even all of them. Some, right? I doubt very highly that Eastern Europeans have Neanderthal in them, but Western Europeans very likely have this high number, right? The UK, the British, stuff like that, because this is where they found the early offspring of this admixture between the Neanderthal and the Homo sapiens sapien, the human. Okay, so my point is that so you can engage it, there's too much on YouTube. And the only reason why there's too much on YouTube is why? Because the group that believes that they have that Neanderthal is their ancestor are Europeans, are white people. And so they spend a lot of time talking about the Neanderthal, right? Period. Right? The Neanderthal is irrelevant to the African. It's not responsible for our existence. It's a genetic dead end. It could not literally, it does not exist because it could not exist, because it could not plan and problem solve in the way to ensure its survival. All right. This is basic early human history, Australopithecus, Homo erectus, all of that. This is not revolutionary, even what I'm saying. None of what I'm saying is revolutionary at all. Okay, these are things that are scientifically well known. And I'm a historian, but these are things that when you teach human history, world history, you are required to know. But it's not, essential for the regular person who is, living, doing, whatever another line of work might be. This is sort of irrelevant, right? Let's see, yeah, North America, back of a lot of sun, reasons left to Canada. Okay, I don't know, does Canada have more sun than America? I don't know. It's both the Western Hemisphere, right? Has 4 seasons. We don't get sun. It's in hot sun, so much needed. Yes, exactly. Oh, reasons he left Canada. I got you. Right. Reason you left Canada. Okay. Morissette, I guess you can text it, right in here to the administrator and see if you can still join the course. Not everyone. Medical apartheid on melanin women in America. Absolutely. So we can say that the European who calls melanin people animals is because the Neanderthal is calling. Well, I mean, the Neanderthal was an animal, so it did not speak, so this thing that we call language and how we construct words and all of that it is truly a gift. It is the gift of being human. The Neanderthal was not capable of that. Okay, the Neanderthal did not have language. I'm sure they had, their own language, but they did not construct words. They did not speak as we speak. Right. That's a known fact, right? So, but could make guttural sounds and grunt. This is clear. You can find any very scientific video on YouTube and watch all about the Neanderthal, but just don't let them fool you with that. This is a human ancestor. It is not a human ancestor. If you're calling Europeans the blueprint for humanity, then it's their ancestor. It is not the ancestor of any African person, right? The only way we would get a touch of Neanderthal in our DNA is if we are raped, as we were in the context of slavery in the Western Hemisphere, the Caribbean, Central South America, and the United States and in this Western Hemisphere. That's the only way someone like myself could possibly have a touch of Neanderthal in their DNA. Otherwise, the science to date, and I'll share some of the articles I know it's sort of interesting to some people, it's not interesting, but I'll share some of the articles, the archaeological finds related to this in the group if some of you are interested. But yeah, it would only be because of, rape during slavery that we would find Neanderthal in a person who is identifiably Black, right? But the language that people use on the issue. So when a European scientist starts talking about the Neanderthal and then conclusively says the human ancestor, they are speaking completely for themselves and not for everybody, right? On the African continent, there is no Neanderthal DNA in the DNA makeup of the African person on the continent. That is not, the Neanderthal cannot be found, right? And in Asia, the Chinese geneticists who wanted to find Homo erectus in Asia, He wanted to say we have something else here, that maybe we're independent and we are our own strand of type of human beings, because he'd rather associate itself with an animal, the Homo erectus, than to associate himself with Africa and African people. Bizarre. The racism really is a scary thing, and it is truly a pathology. It is truly a pathology, sort of a disease of the mind, that you would want to be more closely related to an animal than you would to humanity, because of what you think it means to be Black and what you think it means to be Black African, right? And so, but this should give us great inspiration to fight racism, right? Why? Because one, what you should have got from today's lecture is that it hasn't always existed, and the people who created it are very young, right? Meaning that they are a younger group of people than African people are, and they haven't always existed in the history of humanity, meaning European Caucasians have only existed for 7,000 to 8,000 years, according to their own data. African people, humanity has existed 200,000 to 300,000 years. Now, if you don't know what that means, think of it in terms of money. Would you rather have $7,000 or $8,000, or would you rather have $200,000 to $300,000? I think that drives the point home, right? So the possibility of racism not existing is great, particularly if we are an active force against it, right? And are insulating and protecting ourselves and our people and loved ones against it. I'm going to try to find that clip about the Chinese geneticist. I mean, he went out of his way, and kudos to him, I can't email you the links, but I can put them in the groups for people to see the thing, to see the Asian study, and to also, to see the Asian study of the Asian geneticist. But you have what you need in terms of the Journey of Man, a Genetic Odyssey. I know I'm way over at this time. Okay, so I'm gonna stop. I feel like I'm way over. So I'm gonna come back here. Let me check the time. I'm very much over. Yeah, very much over. Sorry, everyone. This is why it's good that I go last anyway, right? So I bring up the end, and if either folks need to leave, they leave or whatever. But so what are you doing this week in the context of this course? You are, one, revisit the video of Kwame Ture, that 11 minutes, where he talks about the history of Pan-Africanism, and you'll get one chapter from a book I wrote, actually, on the history of Pan-Africanism to supplement that and give you more information. And so that particular reading will be the subject of our next lecture, which will be on the history of Pan-Africanism. What happened? How does it emerge? What does it mean by definition? What does Pan-Africanism mean historically? And what does it mean now, really? And so I'll be going through, just the historical line of Pan-Africanism. Okay. All right, so I'm going to leave it there. I apologize for going so far over. I didn't expect to, but I'm glad those of you who stayed as long as you did. I appreciate you, appreciate your time, appreciate you loving African and Black people through action and your commitment to I love Black people. Okay, I am because we are.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Wright, for this wonderful lecture. Yes, I am because we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.